US media outlet Axios is reporting that Iran has put forward a new proposal to the United States. It's been communicated to Washington via Pakistani mediators. Tehran has proposed that a ceasefire between the US and Israel, Israel and Iran, be extended indefinitely, or that hostilities be ended permanently. Future talks on Iran's nuclear program are conditional and will only be held at a later stage. Tehran wants the American naval blockade of Iran lifted. Washington has reportedly received the Iranian proposal, but it's unclear whether it's being considered by negotiators. Dania Thafer is the executive director of the Gulf International Forum, a think tank that's based in Washington, D.C. She's here in the studio with us now in Doha. Good to see you again. Is there any basis in what we just heard there for a negotiating path if, as President Trump says, the U.S. holds all the cards? I mean, from a Gulf perspective, does Washington have the leverage here, or is Tehran's position perhaps much stronger than President Trump would like to admit?
Well, I think when the U.S. blocked Iran in the Strait of Hormuz, it did increase U.S. leverage. But if you hear what the Iranians are proposing, they're trying to separate or decouple, if you will, the nuclear issue from the Strait of Hormuz issue, and use the Strait of Hormuz to stop the U.S. blockade and end the war, ideally from their perspective. So it seems like they're not even going to the negotiation about the core issues and the reasons this war, from the U.S. perspective, was started. It seems like the Strait of Hormuz set back the negotiations from being focused on the nuclear issue to being focused on the Strait of Hormuz.
Yes, the nuclear issue is Washington's red line, though, isn't it?
Yes, the nuclear issue is Washington's red line. And it seems before this, when the Iranians and the Americans have been negotiating, the nuclear issue was much more of an issue at the table. But right now, it seems like with Iran's new proposal, it's changed that scenario. And I don't think the U.S. will likely agree to that.
As we've been reporting, Abbas Araghchi was in St. Petersburg in Russia today. Iran obviously now engaging Oman, Pakistan, Russia. It's been consulting with Qatar, with Turkey, with Egypt, Saudi Arabia. Does Iran's broader diplomatic engagement now help or hinder negotiations by fragmenting the process? You've got too many cooks almost spoiling the recipe here.
Well, I think this is more about Iran trying to ramp up diplomatic clout and appear that it's not as isolated as it may be. And obviously, Russia is aligned with Iran to a certain degree. It's not willing to sacrifice anything tangible for Iran, but it is an ally of Iran. And, within the region, certainly they were, especially from the perspective of the Gulf states, the Iranians were able to visit the Omanis, who have a historic, long-standing, positive relationship with Iran for many different reasons. And of course, they both share territory in the international waterways of the Strait of Hormuz. And also, Oman has been the most tepid one in terms of responding to Iranian aggression, and it is also the one that was least attacked by Iran. But it is telling that the other Gulf states did not meet them in person. So they are keeping diplomatic channels open, but they're keeping Iran at arm's length, trying to send a message that they still haven't went back to normal relations or will do so anytime soon.
All right. As far as Russia's involvement is concerned, though, what role could it realistically play in any of this? Facilitator, a supporter, be it economical or political support, or is it a complicating factor given relations between Russia and the United States?
In terms of the nuclear deal?
Yeah, well, in terms of if Russia gets involved in trying to help to negotiate an end to the conflict.
Well, I think that Russia, in order to be a mediator or negotiator in a conflict of 2 to 3 parties in this case, you would have to have good relations with all parties to have that credibility and trust. And I think Russia just doesn't simply have that trust. Maybe you can argue that Trump, from all the previous U.S. presidents, has probably the most positive relations with Russia, but by no means does Russia have the credibility to be a mediator. And this is why Pakistan is the main interlocutor.
And if Washington dismisses this reported latest Iranian proposal, what's going to realistically break the stalemate? How does this move forward?
Well, that is the concern, because you can also see that Washington has postured troops and military equipment double than of that it had before here in the region. So one wonders if there's going to be an escalation, or is this just both parties are playing hardball for negotiation tactics. But it's unfortunate that they haven't even reached they're just negotiating terms to get at the negotiating table. They haven't even gotten to that yet at this point.
Really good to talk to you again, Dania. Many thanks indeed. Dania Thafer.